It's our stories. Welcome to a world where real stories sounds like a movie script.
If you've never been truly hungry, not the I skipped lunch kind of hungry, but the gnawing, acidic emptiness that keeps you awake at 3 a.m., then you won't understand what I allowed them to do to me. Poverty is a cage, and for 3 years, my cage was located on the 54th floor of a glass monolith in Manhattan, inside the predatory ecosystem known as Apex Capital. I was 24 years old, a junior quantitative analyst, and I was drowning. On paper, I worked for one of the most prestigious hedge funds in the world. In reality, I was an indentured servant in a $3,000 suit that I bought at a thrift store and tailored myself with a needle and thread under a dim bathroom light. My tormentor, my boss, my owner, was Marcus Vanderbilt. Even the name sounded like old money and cruelty. Marcus was 32, the son of a shipping magnate, a man who had failed upward his entire life until he landed in a corner office with a view of the Hudson River. He didn't know math. He didn't understand the complex derivatives I coded into our trading algorithms. What he knew was dominance. He was a biological bully who smelled weakness like a shark smells blood in the water, and I was bleeding profusely. My weakness wasn't incompetence. I was the best coder on the floor. My weakness was my mother. She was dying of a degenerative condition that insurance deemed pre-existing and elective to treat. Every cent I made after the exorbitant rent of my closet-sized apartment in Queens and the student loans that suffocated me went to her medical bills. I lived on instant ramen and tap water so she could have pain medication. I walked 4 miles to work in the rain to save the subway fare. Marcus knew this. He didn't just know it. He fed on it. It started with the coffee runs. He wouldn't ask me to go to the break room. He would send me to a specific roastery 6 blocks away in the snow, demanding a specific blend. When I returned, shivering, soaking wet, holding the cup like a holy grail, he would take a sip, grimace, and pour it into the trash can right in front of me. "It's lukewarm op," he would say, not even looking up from his phone. "Go again, and run this time. The exertion will warm you up." The entire bullpen would watch. The other associates boys from Yale and Harvard who had trust funds and summer homes would snicker. They weren't evil, perhaps, but they were weak. They laughed to ensure they weren't the next target. I was the lightning rod for Marcus's sadism, protecting them from the storm. But the day that severed my soul from my body, the day I stopped being a human and became a weapon, was December 21st. Bonus day in the finance world. Bonus day is religious. It's the day you find out if you're buying a Porsche or a penthouse. The air in the office was thick with greed and testosterone. Corks were popping. People were shouting numbers, comparing checks. I didn't want a Ferrari. I needed $7,000. That was the cost of a new experimental treatment for my mom. Just $7,000. Based on my performance, on the millions my code had saved the firm that year, I calculated I should get at least 10, maybe 15. At 4 p.m., Marcus called an all-hands meeting in the main conference room. He stood at the head of the long mahogany table, looking like a Roman emperor. He was holding a stack of thick, creamy envelopes. "This year," Marcus bellowed, his voice booming, "we crushed the market. We ate the competition alive, and because I am a benevolent god, I am going to make it rain." He started handing them out. "Johnson, 50,000. Buy yourself a new watch. That one is embarrassing. Miller, 80,000. Maybe now you can. Afford a girlfriend who doesn't charge by the hour." The room roared with laughter and applause. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I stood in the back, invisible, clutching my frayed sleeves. I just needed the envelope. I just needed to save her. And finally Marcus said, the room quieting down as his eyes locked onto me. A cruel smile curled his lips. "Our resident genius, our little code monkey, Op." He waved me forward. I walked the length of the table. I could feel the eyes of 50 coworkers burning into my back. I reached out my hand. Marcus didn't hand me an envelope. He reached under the table and pulled out a cardboard box. It was an old, dirty shoebox. He dumped the contents onto the pristine mahogany table. It wasn't a check. It was a pair of shoes. My shoes. an old pair of sneakers. I kept under my desk for the walk home. They were worn out, with holes in the soles, held together by hope and glue. I was looking at the payroll, Marcus announced, his voice dropping to a theatrical whisper, and I noticed something tragic. Our op here is making, well, let's call it charity wages. And yet, he walks around my office looking like a refugee. He picked up one of the sneakers with 2 fingers, holding it like it was radioactive waste. Look at this, he sneered, showing it to the room. There is a hole in the bottom. I can see the insole. It smells like desperation, doesn't it? The room was deadly silent. Someone coughed. So Marcus continued, enjoying the spotlight. I decided that giving you a check would be irresponsible. You'd probably spend it on something foolish, like food. Instead, I started a collection, a Save the Op fund. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a handful of loose change. Pennies, nickels, dimes, a few crumpled dollar bills. He threw the money at me. The coins hit my chest and clattered onto the floor, rolling under the chairs. There's about $42.16 there, Marcus laughed. Go to Payless. Buy yourself some dignity. Consider this your bonus. He leaned in close. So close I could smell the expensive scotch on his breath. And op, don't ask for a raise again. You are lucky I let you breathe the air in this building. You are a rounding error. You are nothing. Time stopped. I looked at the coins on the floor. I looked at the faces of my colleagues. Some looked away in shame. Others, the sycophants, were giggling, covering their mouths. I looked at Marcus. He was beaming. He was waiting for me to cry. He was waiting for me to beg. Wanted me to get on my knees and pick up the pennies. Asterisk, in that moment, something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud snap. It was the sound of a heavy steel door slamming shut and locking. The part of me that felt shame died. The part of me that felt fear evaporated. All that was left was a cold, black void of calculation. I didn't pick up the money. I didn't scream. I slowly reached into my pocket and pulled out my ID badge. I placed it gently on the table, right next to the dirty sneaker. Thank you, Marcus, I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Hollow, deep, steady. You've given me exactly what I needed. What? A reality check. He scoffed.
Ow!
I replied, looking him dead in the eyes. Clarity. I turned around and walked out. I walked past the stunned silence of the bullpen. I walked to the elevator. I didn't take my coat. I didn't take my personal belongings. I walked out into the freezing December night in just my suit. The wind cut through me like knives, but I didn't feel the cold. I was burning. I was burning with a hatred so pure, so concentrated it felt like I had swallowed a star. I didn't go home. I went to the hospital. I sat by my sleeping mother's bed, holding her frail hand, and I made a vow to the humming machines. I would not just survive. I would not just succeed. I would build a throne on top of Marcus Vanderbilt's grave. I would take everything from him, his money, his pride, his name. I wouldn't stop until he was the one looking for change on the floor. The next 4 years were not a life. They were a mission. I moved out of my apartment and into a windowless basement in the Bronx. It was damp, smelled of mold, and the boiler in the corner screamed all night. But it was cheap. Every dollar saved was a dollar invested in servers. I sold everything I owned. My watch, my books, my furniture. I kept only my laptop and the clothes on my back. I lived like a monk of the digital age. I ate rice and beans. I drank instant coffee that tasted like battery acid. I worked 20 hours a day, sleeping in 4-hour bursts, when my eyes physically refused to stay open. I was building Cerberus. At Apex Capital, I had seen the flaws in Marcus's strategy. He traded on gut feeling, on insider whispers, on legacy trends. He was a dinosaur in the age of meteors. Cerberus was the meteor. It was a high-frequency trading algorithm designed to do one thing: hunt. It didn't just look for profit. It looked for the specific, bloated, inefficient trades that firms like Apex made. It was designed to front-run them, to bleed them dry by 1,000 cuts. I launched Cerberus 6 months after walking out of that conference room. The first day, my account balance went up by $12. I stared at the screen and laughed. It was the same amount Marcus had thrown at me. The second day, it was 50. By the end of the month, I was making $3,000 a day. But I didn't stop. I didn't buy a better bed. I didn't fix the heater. I poured every cent back into the machine. I bought more processing power. I rented server space closer to the exchange to shave milliseconds off my latency. Speed was the weapon. While I was ascending in the darkness, Marcus was rotting in the light. I tracked him. I had alerts set for every mention of his name, every trade Apex Capital made, without Meath, a code monkey who quietly fixed his mathematical errors. The rounding error, who stayed late to correct the risk models Marcus was exposed. He was a pilot who didn't know how to fly, and his autopilot had just walked out the door. Year 2, Apex Capital misses quarterly projections by 15%. I read the headline on my phone while eating a sandwich on a park bench. I smiled. Marcus had tried to cover the loss by doubling down on risky tech futures. Cerberus saw the move coming before he even clicked the mouse. My algorithm shorted the exact stocks Marcus was buying. I made $2 million that Tuesday. Marcus lost 20. It wasn't luck. It was an execution. My mother passed away that winter. I was wealthy by then, a millionaire on paper, but I couldn't save her. The damage was done years ago, but I gave her a funeral fit for a queen. I stood by her grave in a $10,000 cashmere coat, the snow falling around me, and I felt a coldness that had nothing to do with the weather. "He did this?" I whispered to the headstone. "He kept the money that could have saved you earlier. He bought a third car instead of letting you live without pain." The grief didn't soften me. It hardened me into obsidian. The mission shifted from survival to total annihilation. Year 3. I founded Obsidian Holdings. It was a ghost firm. No website, no press releases. Just a massive pool of capital and a terrifyingly efficient AI. I began the acquisition phase. I didn't want to just beat Marcus. I wanted to own him. I started buying Apex Capital's debt. When a company bleeds, banks get nervous. They sell the debt to recoup some cash. I was the buyer. I bought the loan on the Apex headquarters. I bought the liens on their server farm. I bought the personal debt Marcus had secretly accrued to maintain his lavish lifestyle while his bonuses dried up. I knew about the gambling debts in Macau. I knew about the second mortgage on the Hamptons estate. I bought it all through shell companies, nested within shell companies. I was the invisible noose tightening around his neck. Year 4. The crash. Marcus made one final, desperate bet. He poured the firm's remaining liquidity into a volatile biotech merger, hoping for a miracle to save his reputation. Cerberus flagged the trade as high-risk probable failure. I could have stayed out of it. Instead, I used my capital to crush the merger. I legally maneuvered the market, triggering a sell-off that panicked the investors. The biotech stock plummeted. Apex Capital was insolvent within 48 hours. The headlines were beautiful. The fall of Apex, vampire squid of Wall Street goes bankrupt. Marcus Vander built under investigation for gross negligence. It was time for the harvest. I called my lawyers. An army of sharks in Italian suits? Initiate the hostile takeover, I said. Looking out the window of my new penthouse office, directly across the street from the Apex building. I want the building. I want the brand. I want the furniture. And I want the CEO. The CEO usually resigns in these situations, my lawyer noted. Not this time, I said, sipping a coffee that cost more than my weekly food budget used to. Offer to buy out the personal debt clause. Tell the board I will save the company from liquidation, but only if the current management remains. Available for transition. Available. In what capacity? I'll decide that when I see him. I checked my reflection in the glass. The boy with the hole in his shoe was gone. Staring back was a man who looked like he could buy God. I straightened my tie. Set up the meeting. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Tell Marcus the new owner is coming to collect. Walking into the lobby of the Apex building was like stepping into a recurring nightmare. Only this time, I was the monster. The smell was the same expensive polish and fear, but the atmosphere had shifted. The receptionists were whispering frantically. Security guards stood rigid. They knew Obsidian Holdings had bought the corpse of their company. They didn't know who was behind the mask. I didn't wear a badge. I wore a bespoke three-piece charcoal suit that screamed power. I walked past the turnstiles without slowing down. The head of security stepped forward to stop me, saw the look in my eyes, and stepped back. He knew a predator when he saw one. I took the elevator to the 54th floor. The silence inside the car was heavy. My reflection in the polished brass doors showed a stranger. Cold eyes, sharp jawline, a shark in human skin. The doors opened. The bullpen, the place where I had eaten lunch alone, the place where they had laughed. It was silent now. Boxes were packed. People were huddled in groups looking terrified. As I walked down the main aisle, heads turned. Is that? No, it can't be. It looks like him. I saw Miller, the guy who got the $80,000 bonus 4 years ago. He looked aged, tired, wearing a shirt with a coffee stain. He locked eyes with me, and his jaw dropped. I didn't stop. I didn't nod. I just kept walking toward the corner office. The office with the Hudson River view, the door was closed. The nameplate Marcus Vanderbilt, CEO, was still there, but it looked tarnished. I didn't knock. I opened the door and walked in. Marcus was standing by the window, staring out at the gray river. He was holding a glass of scotch. It was 9:05 a.m. He turned around, ready to bluster. Ready to fight the corporate raider? You can't just barge in here, he started, his voice cracking slightly. I am still the... He stopped. The glass slipped from his fingers. It hit the carpet with a dull thud, splashing amber liquid onto his shoes. He squinted. He blinked. He took a step back, hitting the window glass. Up, he whispered. It was a sound of pure horror, like seeing a ghost rise from the grave with a shotgun. "'Lo, Marcus," I said. My voice was calm, conversational. "Nice shoes. Are those Italian?" This is impossible," he stammered, his face draining of color. You're Obsidian? You're the buyer?" "I am the owner," I corrected. I walked over to his desk. His massive mahogany desk. I picked up a framed photo of him on a yacht. I looked at it, then dropped it into the trash can. "Sit down, Marcus. You worked for me," he shouted, trying to summon the ghost of his old authority. "You were a nothing. A rounding error. I fired you. And that was the best financial advice anyone ever gave me," I said. I walked around the desk and sat in his chair. It was comfortable. It felt like victory. I spun it around to face him. "I told you to sit." Marcus collapsed into the guest chair, the low chair, designed to make visitors feel small. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Revenge, is that it? You spent millions just to fire me face to face." "Fire you?" I laughed softly. "Marcus, you misunderstand the situation. If I fire you, you walk away. Sure, you're broke, but you're free. You have bankruptcy protection. You start over." I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the desk. "I don't want you free. I own your debt, Marcus. I bought the mortgage on your Hamptons house 3 months ago. I bought your credit card debt last week. I even hold the note on that Ferrari you love so much. You don't just owe the bank. You owe me." He stared at me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish on a hook. "I own you," I continued. "I own the shirt on your back. I own the watch on your wrist. If I call in the debt today, you go to prison for fraud because we both know you lied on those loan applications. I have the documents." Marcus began to cry. It was an ugly sight. The Roman emperor was gone. All that was left was a scared, middle-aged man who had never faced a consequence in his life. "Please," he sobbed. "I have kids. I don't know how to do anything else. I'll do anything. Just don't put me in jail. Don't take the house." I watched him cry. I searched my heart for pity. I looked for that spark of humanity that says enough is enough. I found nothing. I only remembered my mother lying in a hospital bed because I couldn't afford the good medicine. I remembered the sound of coins hitting the floor. "I won't put you in jail," I said, "and I won't fire you. In fact, I'm hiring you." Marcus wiped his nose with his expensive sleeve. He looked up, hope warring with confusion. You're keeping me on? Yes, I said. I reached into my pocket. I pulled out a handful of loose change, pennies, nickels, dimes. I threw them across the desk. They slid over the polished wood and fell into his lap. I need an assistant, I said. My coffee is getting cold, and the trash can needs emptying. The human spirit is resilient, but the ego is fragile. It breaks like glass. It has been 6 months since the acquisition. We rebranded Apex Capital to Vanguard Systems. The company is thriving. We are efficient, ruthless, and profitable. The office culture has changed. There is no yelling. There is no humiliation of juniors, except for one person. Marcus Vanderbilt still comes to work every day at 8 a.m. sharp. He doesn't wear his Italian suits anymore. I seized those as collateral. He wears a cheap polyester suit from a department store. It fits him poorly. He looks gray, deflated, like a balloon that has been left in the corner for weeks. His title is executive assistant. His salary is minimum wage. Every cent he earns, minus a meager allowance for food and a rented room in Queens, the same neighborhood I used to live in, goes directly to paying off his debt to me. At his current rate, he will be debt-free in roughly 140 years. I buzz the intercom. Marcus, my office. He appears within 10 seconds. He moves with a nervous shuffle now. The swagger is gone. Yes, sir, he asks, staring at his cheap shoes. This coffee, I say, gesturing to the cup he brought me 10 minutes ago. It's an Ethiopian blend. I asked for Colombian. I'm sorry, sir. The shop was out of Colombian, so you improvised. I raise an eyebrow. I don't pay you to improvise, Marcus. I pay you to follow instructions. Pour it out. Go find the right blend. Walk if you have to. Run if you're cold. He flinches. He remembers those words. He remembers making me run in the snow. Yes, sir, he whispers. He takes the cup. His hands shake. Sometimes when we have board meetings, I make him sit in the corner. I don't let him speak. I just let him exist as a warning to everyone else. A living monument to the consequences of arrogance. The other board members, some of whom used to work for him, don't look at him. He is a ghost to them. Uncomfortable furniture. One rainy Tuesday, I called him in. Close the door, Marcus. Closed it and stood there, wringing his hands. I'm looking at the cleaning budget, I said, leaning back. It's too high. I'm thinking of cutting the janitorial staff for this floor. Okay, sir? Which means I pointed to a stain on the carpet, a coffee stain I had intentionally made earlier. I need you to handle that. Marcus looked at the stain. Then he looked at me. His eyes were wet. Sir, please. I have a master's degree in business. I ran this firm. I can do analysis. I can help with the accounts. Your analysts bankrupt the firm, I reminded him gently. And your accounts were fraud. You are not qualified to touch my numbers, but you are qualified to hold a sponge. There is a bucket in the supply closet. He stood there for a long moment. I could see the war inside him, the tiny spark of rebellion fighting against the crushing weight of his reality. If he walks out, he goes to prison. If he stays, he scrubs the floor. He turned and went to the closet. He came back with a bucket and a brush. He got on his hands and knees. The former CEO of Apex Capital, the man who threw pennies at me, was now scrubbing my carpet while I checked my emails. I watched him for a moment. Do I feel guilty? I asked myself that question a lot in the beginning. Was I becoming him? Was I the monster now? I thought about my mother. I thought about the night I walked for miles in the snow because I couldn't afford the bus. I thought about the laughter of the bullpen. No, this wasn't cruelty. This was education. Marcus had lived his whole life thinking people were disposable. He thought wealth made him a god. I was teaching him that he was just a man, and a man on his knees sees the world very differently than a man in a tower. Marcus, I said. He stopped scrubbing and looked up, sweat beading on his forehead. Yes, sir. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a single quarter. The same quarter I had kept for 5 years. I placed it on the edge of my desk. You missed a spot over there, I pointed. Do a good job, and you can keep the tip. He looked at the quarter. He looked at me. And then he lowered his head and started scrubbing harder. Thank you, sir. I spun my chair around to look at the Hudson River. The rain was lashing against the glass, but inside it was warm. It was quiet. It was perfect. The view from the top is beautiful, but it's even better when you know exactly who is cleaning the dirt off your shoes.
Thank you for staying with me until the end. How would you have acted in the protagonist's place? Write your thoughts in the comments. More fresh and controversial stories every day on my profile. Like and subscribe to this channel.